Welcome to my channel. Please remember to subscribe, like this video, make a comment, or ask a question, or even better, share with a friend. So let me know if there are other courses that you would like me to cover while you're here in this channel. First of all, I want to say welcome to Introduction Sociology lecture number 2. Sociology isn't just about theories and research methods. It's about understanding the world in a way that lets you see the humor in everyday social situations. So I want you to imagine if cats wrote fancy papers about why they knock stuff off tables, like the cat in my house that my husband gives more attention than he gives me. And dogs organize protests for longer walks. Personally, I would like to join in the protest because I like to see dogs run and walk in the streets. Well, not exactly, but in sociology, we are like detectives, and like I said in the first lecture, we figure out the crazy stuff happening in our human world, like why we still have people killing each other in places like Israel and other parts of the world. Ever wondered why people do an outdoor wedding in 20 degrees Fahrenheit with snow falling on them? Well, that wouldn't be me, this African woman. Like, why? Why would I want to be freezing in my wedding gown? I assume you have already watched lecture 1, so when I go to lecture 2, this is a continuation. But it doesn't matter. Wherever you want to start, it's up to you. But for my students at Jomo Kenyatta University, please make sure that you follow the lecture 1 and continue to lecture 2. All right. This is a required course for the university students who are majoring in occupational therapy and any other degree major, but a course in sociology offers college students a valuable opportunity to develop a deeper understanding of a society, human behavior, and the complex interconnections that shape our lives, your life. So this course could be used for training in workplaces and anywhere else one needs to gain understanding on human behavior and relationships. So today we're going to be introducing a concept called agency as well as structure and see how they both relate to each other. So by defining agency in sociology refers to the individual's capacity to act independently and make independent choice. So as a human being, as an individual, so you have that capacity to act independently and make independent choices. It also involves the ability to exert influence and make decisions within the context of social structures. Okay, so I hope you have started to realize what we're talking about when we talk about social structures and we talk about structure and we talk about agency and how they relate. So a structure definitely is a recurrent and patterned relationships or the arrangements and constraints that shape and influence human behavior. And we're going to be expounding on that in the next few slides. So let's look at the agency. In sociology, how does the agency or what role does it have in shaping lives? So agency recognizes that individuals or you as a person, you are an active participant in shaping your own life. Okay, so agency emphasizes that people are not solely products of their social environment. So let me say, like, for example, if you are in college and fail to attend my class or fail to listen to this presentation, you can't blame anyone if you fail the test. Or if you're in college and fail to attend your classes and you sleep in all the time and you don't attend any classes, but at the end of the day you fail your college, you don't get your college degree, you can blame the university management when you fail in your job later. You can get a career, you can get a job. So that is what it means, that you do have the opportunity, you do have the power to shape your own life, even though there is a social environment that does, you know, help you navigate that. So when we talk about exercise of free will, individuals have the capacity to make choices and exercise free will. The same thing, you have the free will to listen to the notes, you have the free will to listen to the video, you have the free will to attend class, you have the free will to do internship, you have the free will to do whatever you want as an individual, because you have the capacity. So agency acknowledges the role of individuals' decision making in societal dynamics. For example, everyone, every man in Africa or in America or in Europe, you have the free will to beat or not beat your spouse. That is your wife. Just because your father did it for your mom, maybe did it to your mom, maybe you grew up in a home where your father was beating your mother, you do have the free will to choose whether to beat your wife or not. So it is not a reason for you to beat your spouse just because you saw your father beat her. Okay? So, got it? Hope you can already tell by now that I am a huge advocate for domestic violence victims for a major reason. Story for another day. So, the other part of the agencies that influence on social stage. Through their agency, individuals can contribute to social change, acts of resistance, innovation, activism, and are expressions of individual agency, like I am doing right now. I am a DV, or domestic violence activist. I help the orphans through a children's home that I established a long time ago, over 10 years ago, and I will not leave a street kid stranded without a bread on the streets, because I do want to contribute to the social change that happens in my agency, or even in my entire social structure. Okay, so I hope you're getting this from my examples. So let's look at the structure. So we did say that the structure refers to the recurrent and patterned relationships, all the arrangements and even constraints that shape and influence human behavior within a given context. So we are an agency, or we live in an agency, and we live in a structure. So when you are an individual, you belong to this larger social context that has relationships based on blood, relationships based on where you went to school, relationships based on socioeconomic status. And there are these arrangements, and there are also constraints as well as opportunities. And these are the ones that are usually going to shape or socialize your human behavior in that context that you are in. JQuat is a context, is a social context, is a structure. So it is arranged in terms of, academics, staff members, students, and all that type of thing. So so the patterned relationships, and it encompasses the various enduring forms of social organizations, that is institutions, just like I said, a university, a school, a hospital, and there are norms and there are roles that provide a framework for you as an individual to interact and function within that society. So if you in JQuat, the norm is you go to class, the norm is you do the test, so for you to be able to progress. So there are roles that are designed for you, that if you have to belong to the structure, that you have to follow, or this organization. If you go to work, there are norms that are in the workspace, and there are roles and responsibilities that though all those are supposed to provide a framework for you to be able to interact with your workspace and even your colleagues as well as your employer. Okay, if that makes sense. So the key points about structure in sociology are going to include the patterned relationships. I hope I'm saying that word properly. The patterned relationships. There are just so many R's and L's for me, this Nyeri girl. These patterns are often repetitive and can be observed across different social settings. So you can imagine, your classmates, that is a patterned relationship. Your roommate, somebody that you share a room, or somebody you share an apartment. So that is actually a pattern. So that is what you're talking about, often repetitive. Then, of course, there are social institutions. So the structures include the established systems and organizations in society, such as a family. So a family is a social institution, actually the first institution that they talk about in the book of Genesis. Education is an institution economy. So those are just clustered that define the established systems of the social institutions, the economic structures. There's a political structures, all the politicians and the religion, the church people, or even Muslims are a religion. These institutions contribute to the stability and functioning of the society. So because we have these social institutions in space, we can say our country runs smoothly, because you can actually, if you want to address the Christians based on a certain policy or something like that, you can go to the church, you can go talk about politics and the policies that you want to make. You can talk to family members. You can provide resources for family members so that the children are fed and not malnourished. Okay. So, and then of course, norms and rules. That is, the social norms and rules are part of the structural framework that guides and regulates human behavior. Just like I said, they define acceptable and expected conduct within a given social group. So, for example, I don't know if you know your norms, even as are depending on your tribe, depending on your church. Their norms that are based on that. Their norms that are based on the you being a university student. There's a certain way you can behave and you cannot behave that's gonna be acceptable. Even just in Juja, you can go running around, screaming because you're a college student and you don't care about anything. So, for example, stealing isn't acceptable. Sometimes we see people fighting in the streets, though not acceptable. We can decide to actually separate them, or we can decide to cheer them. What is your role when you find people walking in the streets half naked, or even naked completely? So if they are going against the expected conduct, we want to find out why so and so is walking in the streets without clothes on. Maybe they have a mental illness or something like that. And then, of course, the roles and expectations. Structure assigns roles and expectations to individuals based on their position in society. So if you're an older person, you're expected to guide the younger people. If you're a politician, you have your role. What you're supposed to do for the people that voted you. We expect college students to go look for work after they graduate, after they get their degrees. Sometimes there are no jobs. Yes, but that is expected. That is what is expected in the structure when that happens. So when you graduate, you're going to look for a job. After you get a job, your mom or your grandmother is going to ask you why you're not getting married. When you get married and you stay too long without children, somebody's going to ask you why you're not getting your first kid, why are you waiting? So there are those roles and expectations. Some of them are written, others are not written. Okay, so of course when you talk about the importance, when you talk about the constraints and opportunities, we're talking about structure provides the overall framework, context, and organization within the society. So if it does that, structure is supposed to impose constraints on individuals. Just like I said, you can drive when you're drunk, you're going to be put in prison. That is a constraint. You cannot take a loudspeaker and go insulting the president. You will be put in jail, shaping the range of opportunities and limitations. So there are opportunities as well as limitations, and we have to, like we have to recognize that. Like, in our country, if you just look around, I see that on my Facebook all the time. Just because I also run a children's home, I do know that in January, in our country, Kenya, we tend to see those limitations, speak louder. Limitations due to money, the socioeconomic status, where that constrain even very bright students from joining either high school or the university because they do not have the money to buy everything that is needed or pay their school fees. And that constraint is probably based most of the times based on the economic situation. So do not get me wrong that we don't have opportunities in our country. In Kenya, we do have opportunities too, but only within certain walls of the structure. So if you can get to school because you don't have money and you performed very well, so the level of your performance is going to allow you to get the opportunities that provide scholarships. So most of the scholarships I always see, because I look because I have a children's home and I have children that I have to take to Form 1 and some have to join university. Actually, as a matter of fact, I have a student from our Upendo Children's Home that joined Jomo Kenyatta doing industrial chemistry. When I'm looking for scholarships, even for university, there are certain limits for them to get that opportunity. They must be within a certain, maybe wall of cluster. You see, if you score over 350 marks and above, you can send this application to be considered for Safaricom Foundation or something like that. In the US, you can join an Ivy college in the US if you have this number of characteristics. One, high GPA. Another one, high ACT scores. Another one, you have to have, a background in volunteerism. You have to have done maybe this number of hours. You have to have these referrals, and the list is long. So when you talk about the constraints and of course the the opportunities, if that makes sense. All right, so of course the cultural values, these ones are going to be based on your tribe, they're going to be based on your workplace, they're going to be based on your school. There are culture. School has a culture, family has a culture. So it's not just the tribes. America has a culture. People who immigrated from Africa, they have their own culture. People who immigrated from other places like Mexico or Asia, they do have their own culture. Okay, so relationship between agency and structure. We talk about the importance of sociology, the structural context. I have already covered constraints and opportunities. We're supposed to really work within constraints. Individuals use agency to navigate and operate within constraints set by social structures. As an individual, there are requirements for you to join college. Okay, so there are those things that are going to act, so that they can actually constrain you within that maybe cluster or requirement. So for you to join college, what do you need in Kenya? You're gonna have to have a certain grade. So you have to work hard from the moment you join school all the way to when you do your KCSE, and you must have a good score. Get good grades, and then you can qualify to join the university. So we do act within constraints. The same way with a job. You're not going to sit in class at JKUAT and wait for a job to just open like that. You have to work hard for it. You have to get a degree that matches your future career. If you want to become an occupational therapist, there are these courses that you have to do for you to graduate as an occupation therapist. So you have to make sure that you also do very well. You go for your internship, you get good recommendation, you write a good letter, you do a good interview for you to get a job. So when when you're talking about challenging constraints, you're talking about agency also involves the potential to challenge or resist structural constraints when necessary. So you as an individual, you know which person that you voted. So your individual vote against a certain policy gives you the power to resist constraints. Like when one leader, for example, if you have a president who comes to a country and raises unreasonable amount of taxes, and people are unable to pay or unable to do the business, you can go back with your power to challenge that constraint that is being put by a structure, the government. You go back to the ballot box and vote him or her out. Hint, hint. So that I'm just talking about this because this is a very good example. So I'm not saying that you vote out the current president. I'm just giving an example. And the same thing even in organizations, that even though there are constraints, we can challenge those constraints in our own way, whether discussion, having mediation, or things like that. Okay, when you're talking about dynamic interaction, we're talking about the relationship between structure and agency in dynamic, involving a continuous interplay. It is like a cycle. Something happens in the structure, the agency must adjust to accommodate the changes. So, for example, right now we know that the economy is poor. So you as an individual, you start to eat less meat, or of course drink less alcohol, or not drink at all. Why? Why are you drinking alcohol when you're in college? You shouldn't, because we know what happens when people drink alcohol when they are young. People become reckless drivers after consuming alcohol. We bring the police department, the structure to enforce non-drinking rules. So we have alcohol blow. We have other things like here in America, we have police who are going to stop you and tell you to walk on a on a string, to see whether you're stable. And if you're found drinking, your license is gonna be taken away. So there are those. So we know that there are people that are going to adjust, whether they just drink at home, not drink at all, or they make sure that when they drink, they don't drive. They get an Uber because it's a safe way to get home. It's a safer way to get home. So let's talk about central theme in sociology as the last one. The interplay between structure and agency is a central and recurring theme in sociological analysis. So that is where agency meets the structure. So that is what you're calling the central theme. All right. I hope if you have a question, please send me a comment, and I will answer it maybe in the next video. So sociologists talk about levels of analysis. The levels of analysis in sociology refer to different perspectives or skills at which sociologists examine and understand social phenomena. Okay, so we do have the three levels that are most commonly most commonly known. The micro level analysis. So the micro, of course, get the word micro, it's smaller than macro. Okay, so the macro level analysis focuses on smaller scale. So that is the individual interactions. So how do John and Jane interact on individual level? Okay, so an example is face-to-face interactions, family dynamics and personal relationships that you have with your colleagues, with your friends, with your roommates. Those would be categorized at the micro level analysis. Okay, so if I wanted to study the micro level, I research on non-verbal communication in interpersonal relationships. I might as well do that. So studies on the impact of social media on individual behavior, that is something that you can also do at the macro level. So the reason why they're called analysis, it's a level where you can actually study the society, which is if you want to know why, or African mothers, they communicate with non-verbal, they use non-verbal communication all the time. Like, I'm pointing at something, but I'm not really pointing. I'm just using my eyes to show you where you need to get the broom if you're looking for the broom. Okay, so in micro level study, actually, an article that I read in the Journal of Marriage and Family back in it was published back in 1996. It was about people who experience balance across their multiple roles and activities tend to be less depressed. So generally, their general health is better and they have higher esteem, and vice versa. So somebody did a study at a micro level. So this was on individual. How you are able to balance your multiple roles and activities. Like, I don't know if I balance my multiple roles because I have many. A role as a mother, a role as a college professor, a role, excuse me, as a wife, a role as a community leader, and things like that. So how are you able to balance those even as a student? You are a student, you're a daughter, you're a son, you're probably working a part-time job, you're probably a CU leader, you're probably a president of a club, a JQuat. How are you able to balance those? So this research was done at the micro level analysis. So the meso level analysis, of course, it is in the middle of it's in between micro and macro. So note that, just in case it comes in your exam. So the meso-level analysis examines the intermediate side social units such as organizations or communities. Examples include workplace dynamics. I would say, your whole entire class is it's at meso level. Examples include workplace dynamics, school cultures, and local communities. Sociology study experiences and interactions within and between groups. For example, my friend and I, Dr. Peter Diengoi, that I'm gonna say a shout out, is one of my mentors. He's a university professor in a university in Florida. We conducted a study on our group, which is a smaller group, and we were looking at intimate partner violence amongst a group, the Kenyan immigrants in the USA. The Kenyan immigrants make a smaller group which is smaller than the micro, and it's also it's larger than the micro, and it's also smaller than the macro. So another study that was done on interactions between two groups. So these are two groups, more than one group. So it can be within group, and it can also be between groups. So this study was done on Somali refugees and how they were interacting with Americans in Maine. So note the difference. So within the group and in between two groups. Okay. So, and examples, analysis of organizational culture and its effects on employee behavior. So that's something you can do. Like, you can go to a workplace, like maybe the entire Safaricom corporation, and just study how that Safaricom, what the culture they have put in place for their employees, for their working, the time they work, the time they eat, the time they have training, and all those type of things, breaks and things like that, and how it does have effect on the employee behavior or even health. So research on the dynamics of neighborhood communities and their influence on residents, that would be categorized under the meso level. Okay, so let's talk about the macro level analysis, because macro, of course, think about huge, bigger, larger than a classroom. So it focuses on larger scale social structures and institutions. So when it's a university versus a class, it's a country, it's a tribe versus a whole country, or even, a macro level, examination of global economic trends and their impact on national economies. We have a very good example of how the Kenyan shilling is doing in comparison to the dollar right today. A few years ago, actually, before COVID, we exchanged $1 to less than 100 shillings. So I remember if I sent $1 to my mother in Kenya, who is late, um, rest in peace, Mama. I would send her, if I sent her $10, she would receive 1,000 shillings because the dollar was exchanging for less money. But that is not a good thing. I mean, it wasn't a bad thing, even though she received less shillings. Today, we're exchanging the same $1 at 164. That is not a good thing because even though you are receiving as much more money, we are having to sell $1 for more money. So if people are importing stuff from other countries to Kenya, they're gonna be paying more shillings if they were buying the same item that they would have bought when the shilling was actually got less shillings, when the dollar was less shillings. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. You can study further on that. So that's why you hear the economy is bad, because you're getting more shillings when you exchange with $1. Sociological studies on the effects of political ideologies in societies. We can't say that the wars we see in the world aren't political at all, can we? We can't. So, and that is where macro level analysis is going to help us to study. Okay. All right. Let me take a deep breath. All right. So what I did is, after teaching this class for so many years, or even many semesters, I decided to create my own macro, my own levels of analysis diagram. And don't get me wrong, this is not my original thought, but it's after looking at many, and I decided I'm just gonna create mine. So it's created by Dr. Eunice Menja, and so this is what you're looking at. So people who are visual like me. So the macro is a small, where you can put the individual, and all the other structures that affect the individual are outside. So the yellow part is the smaller one, and the blue one is the larger, but not so large, as it's not as large as the macro, if that makes sense. So the micro system, you see the individual, the family, the friends. So you can put all your family, friends, families and friends, mom, dad, grandma, how they shaped you. And then you can put in the meso, you have the political parties in the country, organizations that maybe you belong to, the cultural groups, like how many cultural groups that we have in the country, and also other communities, including church, Muslim, Hindu, and things like that. And then finally, we have the macro system. So that is the larger system that affects all the other smaller systems. And that doesn't mean that this on a macro system impacts them. On a macro system impacts the other levels. No. That's not what it means, because they actually they are multi-directional. So you can the micro can impact the macro. If people get very hungry, if people start dying because of COVID, we bring this macro policy where we're going to close borders. Nobody flies, nobody goes out of the house. So the macro is making the decision based on what is happening in the micro, and vice versa, as well as the meso. So if people start misusing the churches to con people, the macro is going to close the meso. The meso votes most likely sometimes influence how the governments are, the politicians are voted in. So multi-directional, that's what it means. Okay. All right, let's go to the next. So I'm gonna say that small scale, micro, individual, non-verbal communication in interpersonal relations. So this is really like a summary. Impact of social media on individual. That is an example of what you can probably study, just like what I just talked about, summary. Then the method, just it's smaller scale, individual interactions, intermediate size, social units, organizational culture, and its effect on employee dynamics of neighborhood communities and their influence on residents. And then, of course, the macro, large scale social structures, institutions, global economic trends, and their impact on national economies, sociological studies on the effects of political ideologies on society, and the list is endless. Right. So we're going to switch gear a little bit and talk about some of the known contributors of sociology, the key figures that have contributed to the field of sociology. Okay, so when you talk about sociology, there are certain people that come into our mind, like what role do they have? What role do they play? So the first one, we're going to talk about Herbert Spencer. So his work is, from when he was born to when he died. So his contributions to sociology. So we talk about he was an English philosopher. He was an English philosopher. So he is known for the synthetic philosophy. He developed the concept of the synthetic philosophy to integrate philosophies from biology, sociology, psychology, and ethics. And this is really my huge fight when it comes to where do you categorize sociology as? Do you categorize it as art? Do you categorize it as a science? And this is a debate that I would really like to participate, especially in my country, Kenya, where you think that sociology is not a science. People who are sociologists should be scientists. They're not art majors. Not to say that anything that art majors are not, they don't do a good job in what they do. No, I'm just saying that there needs to be that change if there will ever be a change. So the social statistics, well, Herbert, his contribution, Spencer contributed to the social statics and dynamics. Distinguished between social statics, that is social order and stability, and social dynamics. So there are times when things remain, status quo, and there are times that social dynamics happen. So the social change, evolution, okay, besides the social order and stability, because we want social order, we want stability in a country. When there is peace, nobody is fighting, but at the same time, we do want the dynamics. We need new leaders. We don't want to have leaders that lead for centuries. Every 5 years we have a new president. Every 5 years we change this and things like that. We look at our policies. So that is what you're talking about, the social change and evolution, because people don't remain. There's so much to catch up on. The IT world. Everything is happening, is changing. So we don't remain static. Okay. So you also talked about an organic analogy. Apply the organic analogy to society, viewing it as an organism with interconnected parts. So think of a society as an organism. So something that's moving, something that's scary, something that has eyes, something that has arms. Influence later functionally sociological perspectives. And then when the legal in sociology, or his legacy in sociology. I can't even speak. I'm tired. No, I'm not. So despite controversies, Spencer's work had a lasting impact on sociology. So he contributed to the development of sociological thought and influenced subsequent thinkers. So Herbert was one of the 3 sociologists who contributed to the structural functional perspectives. So Spencer argued that society comprised numerous structures and that each structure had to perform a particular function correctly so that society could run smoothly. So we do have structures. We have the church, we have the schools, we have the political government, we have families. All those are structures that they need to particularly function correctly. If they are not correctly, if they are not running correctly, if there's no peace at home, if there's no peace in the government, if there's no peace in churches, then, or religious institutions, there will not be peace that is running smoothly. Of course, there are some controversies. Laissez-faire and social Darwinism that he's known for, and he advocated for laissez-faire economics and minimal state intervention. His application of evolutionary concepts to society contributed to the development of social Darwinism, facing criticism for justifying inequality. So he's criticized for that. All right. Okay, so Karl Marx. If you hear the word Karl Marx, what comes to your mind when you hear the word Karl Marx and his revolutionary contributions to sociology? So, early life and background. He was born on May 5th in 1818 in Germany, a place called Prussia. He studied law, of course, lawyers, history, and philosophy. Okay, so foundational Marxist ideas, co-founder of Marxism, along with Friedrich Engels. So you don't have to know all these things for the exam, but I have to tell you that there might be a question about Karl Marx in the exam. He emphasized historical materialism as a driving force of societal change, class struggle, proposed the theory of class struggle as a fundamental motor of historical development, identified Bourgeoisie, spelled as Bourgeoisie, capitalist class, and proletariat. Man, he has this hard word. Proletariat, which is considered as working class. So there is a capitalist class, which is calling the bourgeoisie, and then there is proletariat. And I say it when there is an R and L, I have a problem, which is considered the working class, as central actors in this struggle. So the class struggle that he's talking about. So a critic of capitalism criticized capitalism for perpetuating inequality and exploitation. Even today, we still know that there are people that do not support capitalism. Argued for the eventual overthrow of capitalist systems. So Karl Marx was definitely known for other things. Then I must have left the Communist Manifesto and Das Kapital, co-authored the Communist Manifesto. With Engels wrote Das Kapital as seminal critic of political economy. So his legacy in sociology, Marx's ideas form the basis of conflict theory in sociology, which is really that he introduced one of the major perspectives in sociology, the conflict perspective. So if you ever hear about the conflict theory, it was first developed by Karl Marx. Okay, I know we're in the wrong slide and I'm not able to go back, but I wanted to make sure that if you ever hear, even in the exam, about conflict theory, all I'm gonna be talking about, it has to be Karl Marx. Okay, because he is the one that first developed. There is a theory that society is always in a state of perpetual conflict because of competition for limited resources. And we know that. We have seen most of the wars that we have seen even in the world, the war in Iraq, the war that is going on right now, even in Israel. It's all about limited resources and competition. Who is better than the other? We see the conflict that happens even within our tribal groups, where people are fighting because of just the grass, where they want to feed their animals and things like that, or graze their cows. Conflict theory holds that social order is maintained by domination and power rather than by consensus and conformity. So his work continues to influence discussions on capitalism, inequality, and social change, which is you hear those discussions a lot even here in America. So let's talk about Emile Durkheim. Okay, he's a pioneer of sociological methodology. His early life, he was born on April 15, 1858 in France. He studied in Paris. He's a French philosopher whose primary goal was to have sociology recognized as a separate academic discipline. And this is huge, guys. This is huge. So he's a French philosopher whose primary goal, he really fought to make sure that, sociology was not just a course. It was actually recognized as a separate academic discipline. That's why we have sociologists. People could major, people can master, they can have even a PhD in sociology. Okay, that is huge, guys. So if you ever see something like that in the exam, his fight, foundational sociological concepts. He pioneered the establishment of sociology as a scientific discipline, which is, exactly what I said. Emphasize the importance of applying scientific methods to study social phenomena, which I keep saying that sociology is not an art. Functionalism, he developed functionalism as a major sociological perspective, and he argued that social institutions serve specific functions in maintaining social order. So, and that's what I keep saying, like even our religious institutions, our families, right from the beginning, when a child is born in that micro level, comes as an individual, is shaped, their behavior is first of all shaped by the parents, whom he finds at home, the siblings, knows how to fight, knows whether to fight or not fight, how to solve conflict, then goes into the society. So we're talking about if all these institutions, the smaller social institutions, they do have a function in maintaining social order. It's in your home that you're told you cannot hit someone. When you go out there in school, you cannot hit someone. The teacher says so. You can, even though the teachers hit you, they tell you can't hit someone. And then the government says, no, you cannot hit someone, because if you do, you go to jail. You can't take somebody's item without permission. Yeah, that's maintaining the social order. So all these social institutions do serve a function. That's why it's the functionalism theory. So Emile identified the key role of social integration. He believed that society exerted a powerful force on individuals. So according to him, people's norms, beliefs, and values, they make up a collective consciousness or a shared way of understanding and behaving in the world. So that's why when you go to any country, you find a group of Kenyans, even Europe, Israel, wherever, you're gonna find them behaving almost the same, similar way. So you might just see somebody and actually know why they are behaving that and where they come from. Again, something like the religion. You see somebody dressing in a certain way. They have a collar, a white collar, or they have a turban on their head, or they have a long dress, or they have covered their faces. That behavior is going to tell you this person belongs to this social group. The collective consciousness binds individuals together and creates social integration. Okay? So the division of labor in society was also brought up by Emile. I don't know if you say Emile or Emile. He published The Division of Labor in Society, exploring the relationship between social solidarity and the division of labor. Introduced the concept of mechanical and organic solidarities, which is, and then also wrote Suicide. Is a groundbreaking study examining social factors influencing suicide rate, and this is also very, very important. Remember, guys, I've also written a book about suicide. It's called When Your Teen Hurts. It's actually a small guide for parents to be able to detect when their children are depressed and also read the signs of suicide. So we kind of have something in common. Applied a sociological lens to understand individuals' behavior. So according to Emile, people were more likely to commit suicide if their ties to other in the communities were weak. Okay, so the legacy and methodological contribution that is known for Emile, he emphasizes on empirical research and statistical analysis set the standard for sociological methodology. His work laid the foundation for future studies in sociology, and that's why when you open the journals, you will read all about sociology and the studies that have been done, the research that has been done, and this is an endless research that it's not going to come to an end. because you have to understand human behavior, why people behave the way they do, and how those structures and agencies really shape one human being. Okay. Let's talk about Max Karl Weber. And sometimes people confuse Karl Marx. This is not Karl Marx, this is Max Karl Weber. He is the architect of sociological understanding. Early life and academic background: he was born on April 21, 1864, also a German. He's also renowned as the key figure of the development of sociology. So you can also see how much in common they have. So methodological contributions: he pioneered the concept of Verstehen, or the understanding in sociological research. Verstehen is spelled as Verstehen, to mean understanding in brackets. Emphasize the significance of interpretive understanding in studying social actions. Introduce a method of constructing ideal types to analyze and compare social phenomena. He enhanced the precision and clarity in sociological analysis. The Protestant ethic and spirit of capitalism is also huge. He authored the seminal work, which is The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism, which explored the connection between Protestantism and the rise of capitalism, demonstrated the intricate interplay between culture, religion, and economic systems. Right? Let's continue on Max Karl Weber. Three types of authority that he writes about. Okay, he defined three types of authority: one, traditional, charismatic, and legal rational. So for the traditional authority, it's based on long-standing custom and traditions, legitimate systems from historical continuity and acceptance. Authority figures inherit their positions, and obedience is expected due to tradition. And then the charismatic authority, it's rooted in the extraordinary personal qualities of a leader. Authority is derived from the leader's charisma, inspiration, or unique qualities. Followers believe in the leader's extraordinary abilities and follow them willingly. Okay? And then, of course, the legal rational authority is grounded in a system of laws and rules. So authority is conferred by legally established rules and procedures, like the established rules that we have, driving rules, the procedures. Positions are held based on competence, qualifications, and adherence to established regulations. So you have to be qualified to take the position of a government. You have to be qualified to become a governor. You have to be qualified to become a senator. You have to be qualified to become an MCA. You have to be qualified to become a principal of a school. So there are those established. They are legal. They established rules and procedures. People break them. Yes, they do. So the key insights: Weber's typology provides a nuanced understanding of how authority is legitimized and maintained in different contexts. So these types are not mutually exclusive, and societies often exhibit a combination of these forms of authority. So Weber's framework remains influential in analyzing power dynamics and organizational structures. So Weber's theories will continue to influence diverse areas, including sociology of religion, when you're studying bureaucracy, when you want to study the economic sociology in a certain country or a certain group of people. His holistic approach, though, enriched sociological thinking and encompassing cultural, economic, and political dimensions. Right. So Weber's type of authority, as we said, is a traditional authority, monarchy, all royal families, charismatic, people that are, family known because of that, somebody like Martin Luther. Foreign traditional power is passed down through generations based on hereditary or customary rules. So we know about monarchs and royal families, even in Europe or UK. So monarchs or royal families often derive their authority from long-standing traditions and historical continuity. So you continue to, leave this position for the next, person, the kings and the queens. So the charismatic authority. So when you talk about the, Martin Luther King is really known for that. Charismatic authority is based on the Martin Luther King Jr. Charismatic authority is based on the personal magnetism, influence, and exceptional qualities of a leader. So you can be a charismatic leader. You don't have to have these certain qualifications. So Martin Luther King gained authority through his charismatic leadership during the American Civil Rights Movement, inspiring followers with his vision and passion. And he is forever a celebrity or somebody who is a key contributor in the history of America. And there is actually a specific day that Martin Luther King Jr. is celebrated. So we do have charismatic authorities like that. It doesn't have to be, he hasn't gone to school to study leadership. He just happens to be a leader. So legal rational authority, the modern bureaucracies, Weber is regarded as the most important of the development of modern Western society. So legal rational authority is grounded in a system of laws. As I said there in before, laws, there are rules, and there are also those established procedures. So modern bureaucracies such as the government, agencies, or large corporations operate under legal rational authority where positions are held based on qualification. So you cannot become a governor just because you are a good speaker. So you have to go through the process of, you have to have a degree to become a governor. We have that in the constitution of the country. You have to vie, you have to be voted in, you have to show your, just your background of work as a leader and things like that. Now, the same case as a president. So if somebody says they want to become a president, you're going to look at their history, even sometimes how much money they have in a bank, as well as how many positions they have led there before, whether they have ever become a vice president, whether they have ever become a governor. So there are those established rules, and that's what you're calling the legal rational authority. So I hope you know the difference between the charismatic and the traditional. So the traditional, we are giving the examples of the royal family. So because so and so was a president, so and so was a chief, you are automatically you're gonna become a chief because you're in his lineage or something like that. Or queen, an elder. We don't have that anymore in in our country, but sometimes there is. So you have the president, the first president as Kenyatta, and then we have another president as Kenyatta, and then you might have another president as Kenyatta because people are gonna vote Kenyatta, another Kenyatta just because they had a Kenyatta, or they will vote a Kibaki because there was a Kibaki. That is not to say that they don't have to go through qualifications. So there is a mixture of traditional authority and there's a mixture of charismatic. So that person has to be charismatic and also follow the bureaucracy, which is the voting process. All right. So I want to say thank you very much for watching my video. I want you to comment. I want you to like, and that is appreciated. Subscribers are definitely adored. Thank you. Until we meet again in the third lecture. I want to say thank you, and I'm honored to be your presenter or your teacher.